So in your emotional intelligence class, okay, we went over your emotional self, okay, how you deal with emotions that result from, life experiences, right? How you react, how you, not only to your emotional self, but also to that of others as well, how you deal with other people, okay? So in today's class, when we talk about transactional analysis, it's about your ego now, okay? So how your ego reacts to basically external stimuli, okay? Or when you communicate with other people, how your ego comes into play, all right? So in a sense, we are mentally trying to separate you as a person into you have your emotional self, you have your ego, right? And so on. So today, for the first half, I don't know how long it will take, but we'll be talking about your ego, all right? And different types of ego that you have within yourself, okay? You outwardly, you are like Animesh, right? You're Animesh Shrestha. But inwardly, okay, when we talk about ego, it is comprised of three different manifestations of ego based on your upbringing, your environment, and so on. All right? Okay. All right. So when we talk about ego, it is it's like your reflection in a sense. Okay. So everything that you have come up to now, like, since your childhood, how you were treated as a child by your primary caregiver, your parents, right, and those around you, uh, they all make up now who you are in a sense, how you react to things, how you behave with others, right? How you behave with people older than you, maybe people younger than you, people of your age. So all of these things actually shapes your ego. All right. So it has been shaping your ego, and it will actually your interaction, your how you deal with people now. It's still in a sense, it's affecting you. All right. So your ego is your self-identity. All right. So when you stand in front of a mirror, what you see is your physical, self. All right. You would see if you how tall you are, like your skin color, maybe your hair, eyes, and all that. But beneath that, okay, when you see yourself from the mental eye, all right. So your identity, okay, as a person, when you view yourself from your mental eye, that's basically what is ego. All right, when we talk about ego. So don't confuse with other definitions of ego. Normally, when we hear ego, we tend to mean it as like a pride. Okay, he has an ego. When we hear that, then we normally mean that okay, he is very prideful person, like boastful person, right? So this is a little different. So make the distinction, and it'll be easy to understand. Okay. So this transactional analysis theory was developed by the American psychiatrist, okay, Eric Berne, in 1985. Okay. So this will give understanding this transactional analysis, or TA, will help us have some idea about why people behave differently in different situation or with different people. Okay, you as well, the way you behave with your parents or with maybe someone older would be different than the way you behave with your colleagues or classmates, or if you have your younger siblings or children, the way you behave with them would be different than the way you behave with your friends, right? Okay. All right, so in a person, psychologically speaking, we have three different states, ego states. All right, so the first one is the parent ego state. All right, so this is shaped by how you were brought up or how you were treated as like a child by your parents or by your primary caregiver. All right, those like you may have like older sisters, brothers, or maybe aunts, uncles, right? Besides your father and mother, how they behave with you, that kind of shapes your parent ego state. Okay, so everybody has a parent ego state, adult ego state, and child ego state at a time within them. Okay, that's what comprised of their ego. All right. So depending on how a child grew up, parent ego state can be rather positive or negative as well. Okay. So if someone grew up in a very loving, caring, supporting family, the person's parent ego state will be loving, caring, and very supportive parent ego state, right? On the contrary, on the other hand, if a person grew up in a very critical, like home, very demanding parents, right? Looking at like every single minute things, or even unloving, uncaring, if a person grew up as a child in that home, then that person's parent ego state will be very critical as well. Okay, so when that person is in a state in which is his or her parent ego state comes into play, then he or she will behave accordingly. All right, he or she cannot help to behave any other way because he or she has been programmed, in a sense, from his childhood by his primary caregiver to act like that. Okay, then another ego state is your adult ego state. Okay, so this is your ego state when you are behaving without any influence of your childhood or without any influence of your prior mental programming. All right, so this doesn't have any duality. All right, so it's like this doesn't have like a positive or negative side in a sense. So you're behaving like from here and now, right? So this moment, this present moment that is like flitting away from you, okay? Whatever you do, okay, with regards to this moment, particular moment, your thoughts are logical, you are caring, kind in a sense, very emotionally intelligent, right? You would look at different aspects of a thing, you'd not be very opinionated. So this ego state that is very logical, okay, that is rational and emotionally intelligent is adult ego state. Okay, a person can also have adult ego state. So when you are, let's say, negotiating or talking with someone, if you are in the adult ego state, all right, then your decision will be more assertive or will be beneficial not only to you, okay, but to the other party as well. Okay, so normally when you are negotiating in life, whether in business or in a personal life, when things are acceptable to both parties, then that is good. Okay. Otherwise, when we are influenced by greed or anger or all these emotional state, so normally at that time we would not be in the adult ego state. Okay, we would be in like maybe parent ego state or maybe in a child ego state. So when we decide according to those emotions, okay, then things may be just good for one party, or it may not be fair or balanced. All right. So if we try to be in those stages, try to be more in the adult ego state, okay, more rational, more logical, then things will be acceptable to not only you but to the other people as well. Okay. Then the last ego state that you have within you is the child ego state. Okay, so this is the ego state that how you behaved as a child. All right, so this is different from parent ego state. Parent ego state, like a reflection of your parents, how they behave. So this child ego state is how you behaved according to your personality, maybe according to the environment you were in. Okay, how did you react to certain things? All right, so as an adult now, as a grown-up person now, you still have an aspect of that child ego state within you, in your mind. Okay, so it's like those since you guys are like into computing or IT major, so it's like those programming script. Okay, your microprocessor, your brain would basically execute what is fed to it, right? So what is given to it, in a sense, instructions. So those instructions are still within you, in your mind. So whenever the environmental stimulus or people, they trigger those scripts, then your mind will basically execute those instructions and you behave the same way. All right? So that's what ego states are. All right? Okay. So let's look at script now. Okay, so it is analogous or synonymous to computer like programming. All right. So you have within yourself, it's like mental script. Okay. So according to that script, you would behave certain way depending on certain situation or with certain people. Okay. So you might have experienced in your life that certain people, when you come across them or when they come across you, you behave certain way. All right. Probably they make you angry, and you can't really, behave any certain way. All right. That emotional outburst they bring you. All right. So if you have, felt like that, or a certain situation make you feel afraid. All right. It could be one of your phobias. All right. So that script is in your mind. All right, in your mental memory, and every time those circumstances, situations trigger that script, then your mind, as like a mental computer, of course, you need to distinguish like computer from like mind. All right, mind is like a lot powerful in a sense, so it's different. I mean, but we're just creating an analogy here. All right, so your mind will execute the same script, okay, and as a consequence, you behave the same way. All right, so similar to how we distinguished ego states into 3 different ego states. Okay, so at a single time, how you deal with certain things.
Excuse
Okay,
me, sir.
yes, go ahead.
Uh, Sir, actually, we were here inside the college and we wonder where are you taking the classes from? So
I'm
we
in
could.
like in the staff room, okay, faculty room, which is like probably the smallest room here in the college. So if you are maybe like 3 or 4, you can come in. It's on the first floor of Block A. All right, but
Okay,
there's
sir.
no like
Okay, sir.
whiteboard or there's no projector. You'll just be sitting here with me on the table, over here in the room. I mean, if you want to, you're welcome. All right, if
Okay,
you
sir.
feel like that would enhance your learning experience. So I have not been assigned a classroom yet. All right. Yes, come in. Yes. All right. Just a moment. You guys are in which section? 27C? Okay. All right. All right. Just give me maybe a few seconds and I'll continue. Not for me. Okay. Yeah. I heard that the college would be moving towards physical, class, maybe from next week. I don't know. That's what I heard. Then maybe they will assign me a separate classroom. It's been online classes for a long while now, right? Um, okay, let me know when your computers are on. Now I'll continue with this. Is that okay? All right, so let's continue with with our topic. Okay, so again, if 2 of you guys want to come here, you're welcome, guys, girls. But I don't have many much space here. All right, I don't mind if you come here, but you'll have to stand. Um, Okay, so I was talking about script. Okay, so this script is like you have since you are computing students, or it's like ethical hacking as well. I get students from that field as well. But things about computers, right? How computers execute instructions and so on. So this should be more clear, or would help you understand this topic. All right. So a script in your mind, it can be of 3 types. All right. So winning script, if you have the script like winning script with regard to certain situations, certain people, then your outlook would be more positive. All right. So it's like being optimistic and pessimistic and in between in a sense. All right. If that helps you. So winner script is something that is very optimistic, all right? As the name suggests, it's like a winner, right? It looks like the bright side, right? Some people, with certain situations, they have the winning script, so they behave that way. All right. So for example here, for the winning scripts given, I can take this risk in business, okay? Even if I fail, I can learn from my mistakes, but I know from my research that I can succeed. So more very positive outlook to it, right? So another is the loser script. So you may have the loser script as well. So every time you cross a certain situation or with certain people, you behave like a loser. All right. So it could be your senior, let's say, or somebody who is older than you, uh, because of certain life interactions, you did something, and now the subsequent interactions, you tend to behave that way, as if you are subservient to that person, or lower than that person, or as a loser. Okay, so when you talk with that person, you talk like that, as if like you're nervous. I'm just giving example. All right, or in certain situation that makes you feel inferior. All right, very pessimistic. All right, for example, given here, if I take this risk in business, I will fail. So he has no other option there than saying I will fail, because his mind is focused on only like a gloom and doom situation in a sense. All right, or people, these type of people, certain people I'm talking about. Okay, it's not with all people. Okay, so normally that's the case. Like it's not like a black and white in life in a sense. So certain people you may have even like felt like that when you come across, when you meet the other person, then something happens. It's like that script is executed in your mental computer, okay, and you behave like a loser. All right, so that can happen. So that means that that script is being executed in your mental computer. Okay, so you are programmed to behave certain way. So the third type of script is the neutral script. This is neither winner nor loser. All right, so it's more kind of towards the middle. Okay, not very optimistic, not very pessimistic. All right, for example, given here, it's okay if I don't take this risk. Okay, I can play it safe. I may not win what I want, but I will not lose anything either. All right, so it's like a so-so kind of script. All right, so at any time, just now going forward, you can mentally analyze how you behave certain way to certain situation or certain people. All right, how are you behaving? All right, with your friends, with friends in your neighborhood, maybe with your coworkers. Okay, how you deal with your like a supervisor, manager, or how you deal with those who are subordinate to you. That means lower, in a sense, lower in rank to you. Maybe your nieces, nephews, uh, right? How you behave like that. All right. So try to analyze that. Okay. All right. So with regards to the ego states, okay, so parent ego state, depending on how you were brought up, okay, how your primary caregivers, uh, you know, they behave with you, or how they present themselves to you, it can be positive or it can be negative. Okay, so somebody who, let's say you grew up in a family where parents are very open-minded, okay, loving, caring, so now you would tend to show that same script, okay, when you see, when you are in that parent ego state. For example, maybe your niece or your nephew is struggling in examination, right? They're giving. So now you'd have more like empathetic outlook to the situation. Okay, you'd be kind of like saying, okay, do your best. Or for example, normally Nepali parents, they're very strict when it comes to like choosing field, right? When you pass your SEE or SLC, I used to be SLC, then they want you to take, like, for example, science. All right, so if your parents were like that, okay, then you have the tendency of having that same expectation to other people as well. Okay, normally I'm saying, unless you consciously take effort to deprogram or descript yourself, then you, unless it happens, you would tend to execute the same script. All right, you would behave in the same way, or those behaviors could be expected from you. All right. So adult ego state, again, it looks at all the facts, datas, and it's very logical and it's very caring as well, compassionate, all right, of others, because you're behaving according to here and now. All right. So in business negotiations, in business situations, or even personal situations, it's better if you are in an adult ego state when you are communicating with other people. Okay. Having said that, it's you can't help it at times in behaving any other way because you have been programmed like that. Okay? If you could, if people could, then the world would be very different, right? You would not have any quarrel because when you analyze why people are fighting, then you see that okay, people are actually behaving a little differently. All right? They may be like behaving according to how they grew up, maybe. All right? Okay, then you have child ego state again. Child ego state can have positive and negative side. Okay, free, someone who is free, someone who would like to be, maybe do things, explore around. All right, so that's how that person was as a child. Okay, that person got that environment in a sense. All right, personality and all that shape that child ego state. Then you have someone who is like very disagreeing, quarreling constantly with others, like taking everything for themselves only, like a child. Okay, when you played with maybe like you had like a group of maybe children you played with, and your friends would bring their toys. Everyone brought their toys, but you basically wanted the best toy, no matter who brought up, to yourself. You had that tendency. Now, growing up, you may show that same tendency. Now, okay, the toy may be replaced by something else. All right? Okay. Okay, so we went through scripts. Okay, so with regards to ego, so that stimuli or stimulus we talked about. Okay, it's what is the stroke. All right, in psychological term. So again, you're learning about a lot of these psychological terms, this jargons in a sense. Okay, so if you're curious, what you can do is you can search about these terms and know more about it. But in a sense, the strokes are like those, in computing terms, you have, what is that thing that trigger or, you may know, okay? When something happens, then certain, like a set of instruction would be executed, all right? It's like that alarm in a sense, or that trigger. So this is stroke in a sense. Or this is like a stimulus more appropriately rather than trigger. It's like a stimuli, okay, plural. Strokes can be, with regards to your ego, positive or negative. All right, positive stroke would make that ego in you feel good. All right, you would crave for positive stroke. All right, for example, if you did good in examination, then maybe your teacher would praise you, or your parents would kind of smile at you, or do like give like a gift to you, something like that. So those are examples of positive strokes, right? So normally our ego would crave for that. So in your through your mental eye, like picture yourself like people giving you compliments, you standing on that pedestal of success in a sense, right? Success in society. How do you feel? You feel good. You want to like experience that. Like you would wish that would never go away in a sense like that, right? So again, a stroke can be negative as well. Okay, so negative strokes, like your ego would not like it, even though it could be masked negatively, but inside it's like positive thing is there. For example, constructive criticism. All right. So if your friend gives you constructive criticism, then your friend in a way wants you to improve. All right, he or she is looking at something that is wrong within you, okay, but your ego, self-identity doesn't want to change. All right, for it's like perfect. All right, I don't need to change anything, it's you who needs to change. All right, that's what probably you would say. So it doesn't really like being criticized, being like shown something wrong with it. Okay, negative remarks, humiliation maybe at the extreme. So these are the negative strokes, right? So it's like black and white in a sense. So at a given time, when you analyze any stimulus to the ego, it can be positive or it can be negative. All right, think it like that. Okay, so in our human communication, in our interaction, we interact the ego pairs, right? We learned about three different ego types: parent, adult, child. Okay, so when you look at your interaction from your mental eye, okay, so you would realize that it's actually the interaction between egos actually. So I am talking to you, interacting to you. So it's actually my one of my ego state interacting with one of your ego states. Okay, so we have three different ego states. Okay, uh, so uh, so so if I am interacting with one of my ego states, depending on who you are or different depending on situation. Okay, so mark this thing two different conditions. Okay, environment. Okay, and people. Okay, your interaction with other people would depend, or in a sense, with two different conditions, in a sense. Okay, the environment can make the difference, or the people you are person you are interacting can also make a difference. All right. So at any time, with your three ego states and with the three ego state of the other person, other party, all right. So you can have 9 different pairs. I think nine. Is it 9? Like 3 multiplied 3, right? Okay, 9 different ego pairs, right? Ego state pairs, right? So for example, it could be like I'm communicating according to my parent ego state, and you are behaving or communicating according to your parent ego state. All right. So I think it is like 9. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So it can have 9 different complementary transaction. All right. Transaction pairs. So these are complementary transaction pairs are stable transaction pairs. Okay. So what I mean stable is that these can go on for a long time. All right. If a transaction pair is not complementary, then at certain point, sooner than later, you or the other person will realize something wrong with the interaction, with the communication, and you or the other person will then switch to some other ego state in order to balance it out. All right. So again, complementary transaction, it's stable. Okay, and both person in that communication can actually go on for a long time. Eventually, after maybe several months, that can change depending on you mentally or psychologically growing up or changing in certain way. But we're not talking about like that. But when we say complementary transactions pairs, they are normally stable. All right. So you behave with your friend certain way today, then tomorrow you would behave with the same ego state with that person. Next day, day after tomorrow, next week, next month, like that. Okay? All right. So another pair is the ulterior transaction. Another transaction pair is ulterior transaction pair. Okay? So this one, okay? So this happens when one of the two persons in the communication, all right, in that interaction, have some ulterior motive. Okay. For example, let's say I am interacting with Rohit. Okay, so Rohit, I see Rohit in like somewhere. Okay, so I want to talk, I want to interact with him. But within me, I want to prove that Rohit is like a inferior to me or lower than me. Okay, so if I start with my parent ego state, okay, again, parent can be very demanding as well, depending on how I grew up. Okay, so let's say if I start like that. Okay, so that's my ulterior motive. Okay, trying to show him maybe less than me. All right. So Rohit, when he interacts with me, then he senses that I am being a little different than what other people would, interact with him or behave with him. All right. Maybe if he was, communicating with his parents, he wouldn't mind. Okay. But here I am trying to, be bossy and controlling with Rohit. So Rohit, internally doesn't like it. Okay. Doesn't like the interaction. All right. So that is like, for example, ulterior transaction pair. Okay. Outwardly, it's like we are like I'm saying right now I'm like your teacher, your student. I'm just saying like you meet someone in a like maybe in a street, right? So right now it may be okay because you would behave, you may like respectfully towards me, okay? But just for example, Rohit meeting, for example, Anuj, all right? And Anuj behaving in his parent ego state, and Rohit sensing something that is wrong in the transaction. Okay, so Rohit had that ulterior motive within him to maybe prove. I mean, Anuj had that ulterior motive to prove Rohit as inferior to him or maybe lower than him. Okay, I'm just giving example. Okay, don't take it personally. So that is the ulterior transaction pair. All right. So on the surface, it looks like complementary. Okay, but beneath in our
No offense
interaction,
taken, sir.
okay, but beneath, okay, you have some motive in there, one of the persons. Okay, so that type of transaction cannot go on for a long time. So maybe for a while, the Rohit and Anuj, you behave just okay according to that, according to the transaction of the communication initiated by Anuj. But when you guys depart, okay, so Rohit may not want to talk with Anuj anymore. All right, you get the idea? Okay, this happens in maybe like a more in like business situation where people want to prove other person, like maybe a subordinate to them, or things like that. Or in life as well, you would come across. All right, you meet your maybe some your relatives. You haven't really gone to maybe your parental home maybe in some part, and they have the children of your own age. I mean your relatives, okay, your uncles maybe on. So now after several years you meet them and they may be like older by a few months and they want to behave like they are like older than you would want to like accept. All right, so that could be they are behaving according to their parent ego state, okay, and they want you to behave according to your or perceived child ego state. But that cannot go on. Oh, that can, depending on you how you take it. All right, you may go along with it for a while, but again that cannot go on for a long time. You would not like it. When again it's like a negotiation, as I mentioned again. If both parties don't accept or it's not fair to both parties, that negotiation may not be acceptable. All right, unless like there is like an external force, like a person is intimidated or something like that, then normally people would not accept an unfair negotiation. Right. So the last transaction pair is cross-transaction pair. All right. So in this type of transaction pair, you have a expected transaction or expected ego state of the other person before. Okay. Then in your interaction, in your communication, what happens is you sense that the other person is not behaving accordingly. All right. So the difference between ulterior transaction and cross transaction is different because in ulterior transaction, one of the parties in the communication has the ulterior motive. It's being done intentionally. All right, by one other person. In the cross transaction pair, it's just that you as a person taking part in that interaction, you had a certain expectation. All right, this is not like ulterior motive here. You have certain expectation, but in that communication, in that transaction, that expectation is not met. All right, for example, okay, you have your own business, for example, okay, so you are an entrepreneur, and you participate in a event for entrepreneurs where different entrepreneurs will come together, share their ideas, maybe like try to see how you guys can pool resource together maybe. So you meet another entrepreneur, okay, and you talk to them. So in like when you when you first approached the other person, maybe you wanted to have like adult interaction, like adult ego state interaction. All right, but what happens is that because from the other person's point of view, maybe you had like maybe beard, or maybe you looked a little older, so that the other person behaved a little kind of like a subserviently or in his or her child ego state. Okay, so that person is behaving as if you're a mentor or someone who is has been in the business for a long time. Maybe you're not. all right? Maybe you are, but you wanted to have the adult ego state. That's your expectation. But the other person wanted to have child parent ego state transaction. All right. So you sense that, okay, and maybe you from your anticipated adult ego state, you move up to you change that ego state to your parent ego state. All right. So you now what happens is the other party wanted to interact according to child parent ego state, and you would change from adult to parent ego state, and what happens that communication is the parent-child communication transaction pair, and that is stable. All right. So every time, next time you meet that person, maybe you share your business card, and next time they call you, they would be in the child ego state, you will be in the adult ego state. Okay. All right. So this is stable. In a sense, when it changes, it's stable, but until it changes, it's not stable. All right. The expected ego state is different, so it changed to one of the complementary transaction pairs. All right. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Okay. It can be confusing if you're hearing this for the first time. But we are many of this topic in effective communication skills. It's something that the psychology student will study. All right. So I'm kind of like surprised actually in my college education. I never heard about these things. I wish I studied these because these things are also important. Right. How you behave with other people. Can be more important than how you behave with computers or how you interact with computers, all right? Because we are social creatures, all right? Okay. So these are the complementary transaction pairs, 9. It can be any, depending, again, you have 3 ego states within you. Depending on the environment, depending on the person, you can behave in any of the 3 ego states, and the other person can behave in any of the 3 ego states. So the one on the top left is the ulterior transaction pair. So inwardly, one or both parties, okay, they have the ulterior motive, okay. So after that transaction, or it's something different inwardly. That's normally not stable. Then you have cross transaction. Excuse the typo there. You have cross transaction pairs. Okay, so initially the expected transaction ego state transaction pair is different from eventually what it will end up being. Okay, so initial one is not stable. The subsequent one, when both parties are okay with the transaction pair, then it becomes stable. Then it changes to cross transaction pair. All right, so the complementary transaction pair. Okay, so the cross transaction pair is very, it's only the initial phase, then it moves to complementary. Any question? I hear some noises. Hello. So someone asked me, like, you guys are in college, so which room are you in? Hello? No? Okay, so with regards to communication, again, these things should be very basic to you, okay? Communication can be literal or notional, okay? Communication can be psychological, it may have psychological meaning or connotative meaning, okay? So it's like denotative and connotative communication or message, okay? So in literal meaning or message or denotative message, okay, what you mean is what you say is what you mean, all right? But in the connotative message, or it has like a deeper or something different psychological meaning. All right. Example given here. You remind me of my ex-wife. Okay. So the person saying is basically what it is. All right. So the other person has some qualities that reminds him of his ex-wife. But then the psychological meaning when you say that is a certain aspect that is different. So that the woman may be a control freak, for example. All right. Okay. Physical feature, psychological feature, something like that. So again, these are pretty elementary things. Okay, so let's look at one video. I'm going to share a video, and then we will go to assertive communication. Okay, so by this, the information that I provided you, I think it should be easy to understand that you have, three different ego states within you. Okay, and normally, how you were brought up, you would have different scripts for different people, different in different conditions, situations, environment in your mind. Okay, so we are kind of like comparing your mind with computer in a sense. All right, so every time those things come into play, or you are in that environment or with those people, then that script is executed, or in a programming sense. So let's look at let's watch this video, and hopefully it will be more clear to you.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation with someone where you seem to repeat the same uncomfortable or even destructive patterns with them every time you meet them? For instance, you might feel you're never able to say no to a particular person, or that someone in your life always puts you on the defensive with a constant stream of criticism. Maybe there's someone who always relegates you to the role of listener, never taking an interest in what's happening with you. And each time you might think, never again, next time it'll be different. But it never is. Transactional analysis, or TA, is a theoretical framework used in therapy and counseling, which suggests that one of the overriding factors in the perpetuation of these situations is not the other person's behavior, but our own state of mind. TA suggests we shift between three distinct ego states. Parent. This is a state in which you think, feel, and behave in ways based on how your parents and other authority figures acted. Adult. Here, you think, feel, and behave in response to the here and now. You're able to draw on your full life experience, and generally you're geared to a realistic, objective appraisal of your experiences. Child. In this state, you think, feel, and behave just like you did in your childhood. So there are the three ego states. But what might they look like if you saw them in action? For instance, what if you suddenly caught sight of someone sunbathing nude outside the window? In your parent ego state, if the attitude you'd experienced from parent and authority figures in your life towards nudity was hostile, you might feel disgusted and outraged. You might bang on the window, tell the person to get some clothes on, or clear off. Alternatively, your parent ego state might express itself by showing concern for the sunbather. You might see the sunbathers getting a bit burnt in places and start trying to push suntan lotion on them. So here we have the two typical manifestations of a parent. We have the controlling parent, who judges and seeks to manipulate people to do what they say. Then we have the nurturing parent, who wants to look after people. Going back to the window, instead of moving to a parent state, we might move to child. As a child, you might have been taught that nudity was shameful and trained to avert your eyes, to feel embarrassed or even guilty. If you felt and did these things, you'd be in your child state. Now there's another side to the child state that doesn't give a damn about what people think. It does exactly what it wants to do. This child might see the sunbather and think, that looks fun. I'm going to rip off all my clothes and join them, whether the sunbather likes it or not. So again, there are two sides to this state. There's the side where the child's adapted itself to the demands of parents and other authority figures, and the free child, who just does what it likes. What does the adult state look like? Well, the adult state is the most open to information in the here and now. The adult enjoys its own spontaneous responses, not responses programmed into it by authority figures. Having no big judgments about nudity, the adult has no need to suppress it. The adult's aware that we all have bodies and isn't threatened or disgusted by their reality. Fundamentally, the adult respects the sunbather as an equal. The big buzzwords here are respect and awareness. Unlike the parent and child states, the adult isn't subdivided. That's because it's thought to have access to all information, and that's one of the reasons that it's often a goal of TA therapy to strengthen the adult state. This isn't to say the parent and child states are bad. Later in the series, I'll be looking at the positives they can give us, like structure and creativity. But because of their very limited awareness compared to the adult, the parent and child aren't great ones to rely on. To illustrate why, let's go back to the start of the video, where I spoke about finding yourself in endlessly repeated patterns of negative behavior with some people. What state would you say these folks are in? Well, it's not going to be adult. Let's look at why that is. We move between the ego states all the time, but not in a random way. We change states in response to the thoughts and events we experience. Events, thoughts, and memories that seem unfair might put us in our parent state, where we become judgmental, angry, or superior. Events, thoughts, or memories that embarrass us might put us in our child state, where we might feel ashamed and think we're bad. We change states in response to people, too. Here are a couple of examples of how that might happen. Bill is Jackie's boss. Jackie comes in late and misses an important meeting.
You're useless.
I know. I'm sorry.
Let's look at what happened there. Bill had been in his adult state. Seeing Jackie, he was angry and switched to parent, criticizing her harshly. Jackie had also been in her adult state, but in response to being shouted at, she moved to child, where she felt small and bad and meekly apologized. Another example. Dan lives with Mike. Dan finds a spider in the shower. He has a fear of spiders.
There's a spider. I can't go in there.
Don't worry, I'll take care of it.
Again, let's look at the ego states. Dan might have started out in adult, deciding to have a shower, but then seeing the spider, switches to child, feeling scared and helpless. Mike was in his child state, but seeing Dan brought out his protective, nurturing parent. Notice what the arrows are doing in both cases. They're aligned. These are said to be complementary interactions, or transactions. And they have an important property because, in theory, being complementary, they set up a reciprocal pattern in these situations that could be maintained indefinitely. But not all transactions are complementary. Let's go back to Bill and Jackie.
You're useless. Don't you dare talk to me that way.
Here we have an initial parent statement aimed at Jackie's child, but here Jackie responds by moving to her parent, feeling and expressing outrage. This is called a crossed interaction, reflecting the crossed arrows. Unlike complementary transactions, which are seen as stable and can go on indefinitely, cross transactions are highly unstable, and one of two things tends to happen. Either the transaction will stop, or there'll be a shift of ego state in one of the parties to create a new, stable, complementary transaction, like this.
You're useless. Don't you dare talk to me that way. You've missed the meeting. I don't care what I've done. You don't talk to people like that. But now you can bloody well apologise. I'm waiting.
I just meant that...
I said I'm waiting.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't think you mean it. Right, that's it. I'm reporting you for harassment.
Look, I am. I'm really sorry.
So what started out as Bill trying to put Jackie in a child state ended up with Bill firmly in the child state and Jackie as parent. Now that the transaction shifted, it can stay like that, with Bill perpetually submitting to Jackie. It's not necessarily a comfortable state of affairs, particularly for Bill, but it can be psychologically stable. What about the other uncomfortable but stable situation?
All right, so hopefully that video made it clear, even more clearer, about transactional analysis. Okay, so that's pretty much what I have for transaction analysis. Again, these are a broad field, all right? So you learned about emotional intelligence. That's also a very big field. Transaction analysis is the same thing. If you're interested, there are like books written about it, the videos, like you know, yourself, especially with the self-help type, or even I don't know about Nepal, but if you were in one of the you know, Western countries, they would have those when you go to you know, like if you have some issues like with social interaction, or you know, if something like that, then you can actually go to maybe psychologist. I don't know if it's psychologist like right term, but they would have those transaction analysis therapists. All right, so they would actually help you, you know, with your social interactions in a sense. All right. So definitely, if you are interested, if you feel like, okay, that's kind of an interesting topic, I would like to know more about it, you can do some research. and no more. Okay, so same thing when you talk about neuro-linguistic program, that's a big field, all right? That even has like certification, similar to you may have those Cisco certifications. When you get it, like you can maybe make a plaque and post it on the wall. So if you are someone, but again, like you have a different field, like computing field may not be that extreme, but I'm just saying these are like a big field in psychology, right? Okay, so let's look at assertive communication. Okay, so assertive communication is the preferred communication in business world, all right, informal world. So when you are in college, how you behave with like college administration, with your teachers, or maybe even with your classmates, okay? That is different from how you behave with your family members or with your close friends, okay? So we are talking about assertive communication here, okay? So try to make the distinction between more personal communication and more assertive communication. Again, there may be a situation in your life, in your personal life, where you have to be assertive, where you don't want to be taken advantage by maybe your friends. That's a different story. But when we say assertive communication here, we normally mean formal communication. All right? Because if you try to be assertive all the time in your personal relationship, that may not work. All right? Okay. So I would like to make that distinction beforehand. Okay, so let's look at different communication types. Okay, so communication can be very direct and very aggressive. Okay, for example, again, this depends on your, we talked about scripts and ego states and all that. That could also come into play, but normally we are now trying to look at communication and trying to differentiate communication. All right, so in a sense, we are also maybe, looking at the communicators, okay, who is like the communication approach. So in a sense, we deal with those parties involved in communication. But let's look at communication and its type. Okay, so communication can be very bossy, very arrogant, very opinionated. Okay, and always trying to put other people below you, right? So that is very direct and aggressive. Okay, so the communication of this type. So you may have talked with some people. Maybe at work, maybe you joined as an intern, maybe in a company, and the person who is like working in a senior position is very like demanding. All right, do this, like you have to do this by the end of this week, something like that. So that is very direct communication, all right, very aggressive type. Okay, so next is the submissive type. Okay, so this is also called indirect or submissive or indirect in a sense. Let me not use indirect. Let me just use submissive here. Okay, so this one is like a polar opposite of aggressive type. Okay, so this one you behave as if like similar to, I think in that video you saw one being like very direct, aggressive initially, then it kind of changed to different ego state. So this one, when I say submissive, you feel like very like a helpless in a sense, indecisive, and very apologetic, very needless. Apology, it's okay if you make a mistake and you apologize, but there are people who constantly apologize, even for very like a minute stuff where we don't expect apology, but that person is saying sorry, right? So these are some of the traits of submissive like communication type. Okay, then we have what is in between aggressive and submissive. Okay, this is like passive aggressive communication. Okay, this one on the outside, you see very like a submissive type person in his or her communication, but inwardly that person has a different outlook about the other person involved in the communication. Okay, so outwardly they will be agreeing to, like maybe nodding their head, okay, saying yes, yes, yes in that communication, but inwardly he is saying no. Okay, so that is passive aggressive, right? So again, it's between aggressive and submissive. All right, so this could be deceiving, maybe sarcastic at times, all right, making jokes and like that. At times it may be very confusing as well for you. All right, you say something, they say, okay, I'll do it, but they don't do it. all right? Very manipulative at times, okay, because they don't really mean what they say. They have something different agenda, you know, of their own, even though they are outwardly agreeing with you, all right? And these type of person often like involved in backbiting as well, saying something to you, but don't say directly to your face because they're not direct, all right? But they end up like talking about them to people whom they feel comfortable, all right? About you, I mean. Then there's like the fourth type of communication, which is the assertive communication. Okay, this type is more direct. When I say direct, it means like very open in a sense. All right, the communication, the message are open. So if I am saying something to you, I'm saying the literal meaning to it. Okay, I don't mean something that is that has like a another connotation to the message. Okay, so the message is direct. Okay, if I say you're very hardworking, I mean it. All right, or if I'm saying you're not doing enough work today, I mean it. All right, so this is very direct and being assertive. You're also honest. Okay, again, what you mean, what you say is what you mean. All right, and you're responsible, and this is also spontaneous. So normally in business communication, assertive communication is expected. You are open, you're mindful of others. All right, so honest and all that. So that is assertive communication. So normally when you are in your adult ego state, you tend to be more assertive. Okay, so make that, I would like to connect those two things. Okay, transactional analysis and assertive communication, right? Okay, so what is assertive communication in more detail? So assertive communication is basically when you are open, direct, and when you are mindful of other people in the communication. So when I'm talking to you, I'm also mindful about your needs as much as I'm mindful about my own needs. Okay, so that is assertive. I mean what I say, all right, and I'm respectful. I don't want to hurt anyone, all right. I don't want to hurt your feelings, I mean, and I'm careful about your needs and my needs. So I don't put my needs above your needs, okay. So when I have to say no, I say no. Okay, I'm not pressured by other people. So that is assertive. All right. Okay, so let's look at a few things. If you want to be assertive, so you can maybe look at a few of the things here. Learning to be assertive includes. So first of all, learning how to avoid being taken advantage of. Okay, so in times you feel like hesitant, or even though you don't want to do something, but you can't say no. All right, that's a common problem. All right, and you end up like going along with that, even though you don't want to do that. All right, that's something very common. All right. So what ends up happening is you basically let yourself being taken advantage by other people. Okay, so being assertive from now. Okay, if you want to learn being how to be assertive, is learning. In the next slides, you'll have more things about how to. But right now, just learn about what it entails or what it involves. All right. So being assertive, you need to learn how to basically avoid being taken advantage of. All right. Next thing is learning how to avoid punishing others. Same thing as you don't want to be taken advantage of by other people. If you want to be assertive, you don't want to take advantage of other people as well. All right. So it's like you want to make that balance. All right. So you want to keep it balanced. All right. Just because you see an opportunity to maybe taking advantage of other people, if you want to be assertive, you don't do that. All right, if you do that, then you're not being assertive. Next thing is learning how to handle threatening situation. Okay, so maybe you want to look at the logical aspect, different things surrounding that. Okay, so you want to weigh in all the variables. Okay, so that maybe give you some insight about the situation. All right. So if you have more information, then maybe your how you approach certain things will be different. Right. So learn how to handle threatening situation. How do you do that? Okay. Also, like certain things, what is your emotional response? As I mentioned in the emotional intelligence class, don't react immediately, right? So if you do react immediately, then you end up not being assertive, all right? So you're being taken control out of either by your parent ego state, maybe you're behaving according to your child ego state. So you may not be able to behave according to adult ego state, all right? The next thing is believing in yourself. Okay, that's very important. If you're someone who suffers from inferiority complex, having a low attitude or belief about yourself, it's now time to explore your weaknesses, your strength. All right, find that self-motivation we talked about. All right, so when your mind, that mental focus shifts from what is wrong, what is broken, to what is okay. As a person, we have all of these things. All right, we are broken in a sense, and things are okay with as well. Okay, we have weaknesses, we have strength. We don't know things we don't know, and we also know things we're good at. All right, so if you can consciously shift that focus to what is right, okay, what is full instead of where maybe what is empty, then maybe you can have that you can have that self-confidence about yourself. You can believe yourself when you approach certain things. Then you'll have a different outlook rather than saying I'm not really good at it. I'm probably going to fail. Maybe when you focus on your strength, once you do things according to that, maybe after a while you'll start believing yourself and so on. Okay, so learn to believe in yourself. Another is like learning to keep an appropriate measure of self-control of life. Again, this is not reacting to things like everything happens, and you're not there like immediately, making judgments and reacting right away. All right, so have some patience and self-control in life that will help you become more assertive. Again, these things are easier said than done. I say this, and next thing immediately you meet some person who makes you angry, previously, and the same script plays in your mind. You want to take the revenge, and you want to settle things out. So that means you're not being assertive. All right. Okay, the last point here, learning how to strive for win-win approach. Again, you don't want to take advantage of other people, and you don't want to be taken advantage. So the best thing in negotiation is come up with a win-win situation which is acceptable to you and the other party as well. Unless it is win-win approach, normally negotiations don't go right. Right? It could be in your maybe in your classroom with certain dealings. All right. Maybe it's a group work. All right. I assign you, or one of the teachers assign you group work. You have like four students in a group, and one student doesn't want to do any work. All right. It happens more than you might think. All right. Just I think a day before yesterday, I had a student. They were involved in some Halls prize. All right. I'm sorry if there's someone from this group. All right. So that person was saying like, okay, I'm having to do a lot of work. Let me not go in detail. Okay, just saying, if you want to be assertive, you want to create a win-win approach. You would do your part, and the other person would also do, or at least if you are like a leader or a group leader, you would allocate tasks and make sure everyone does their task accordingly. All right. So at that time, as a leader of that group, you're behaving assertively. Okay, so let's look at a few things you can do in order to be assertive now. Okay, so the first thing is learn to say no when you have to say no. When you feel like, okay, if I say yes here, then I'll have to regret later on. Then it's time you learn saying no. All right. Initially, it will be weird because you have been programmed a certain way you have been saying yes, yes, yes until now. So to say no, it might be difficult. All right. So that's why I'm saying you're learning, trying. Okay. You're learning to become a new you, a new version of yourself in a sense. All right. So at that time, you might need to do. You will need to do certain things that will make you feel uncomfortable. If everything was easy, everyone will be perfect. All right? That's not the case. Things are difficult, especially changing life, changing yourself. All right? This is a very difficult thing. But you're trying to, because you know now that if you do certain things, it will be good for you. All right? So learn to say no, and when you say no, let it be a firm and respectful no. Okay, you don't want to demean other people or say no in certain way that would be very condescending. Okay, so when saying no, your parent ego states come into play, and saying no in certain way that that tries to put the other person maybe in a subservient position. That's also not good. Okay. So here you want to be in the adult ego state and say firm and respectful no. All right? Because you are certain that if you say yes, then you will be taken advantage of. Next thing, setting a boundary. Okay, so again, as I mentioned when we were talking about emotional intelligence, about exploring your weaknesses and strengths, right? So things here in life. So when you are in certain situation, let's say in your work, know what you can do, what you can't do, how much you can give maybe, and all that. So if you know the boundary, what happens is you would basically behave according to, within that boundary. All right. That means you will not do something, or you not say yes to something which you may not have authority over or control over. Okay, so knowing the boundary and setting the boundary would be helpful in basically behaving assertively in those situations. Okay, so don't say okay to something that you don't even have. All right, otherwise you'll be regretting later on, or doing something extra just to fulfill that obligation. Okay, the next thing is asking for help for some time to think if you are not sure of an answer. So normally if your ego, parent ego state or child ego state comes to play, and if somebody asks you a question, you don't have the answer to it, you would answer. You may even be tempted to make your own answer in your mind and reply it, whether that answer is true or not. All right. But if you want to be assertive, okay, if you want to be behave according to your adult ego state, then for things that you don't know, you would say, I don't know. So it's always okay if you don't know to accept that you don't know, right? Because you're not like a Google there with all the answers. And also maybe you will ask sometime. So give me maybe a few days or maybe a few hours. I'll come back to you with the answer, something like that. That's very assertive than making your own answer, right? Next thing is giving compliments when due, not to flatter, however. So when you're being assertive, you know someone did something good, then you would give compliment, but not unnecessarily. Okay. Some people, when they want to win favor from other people, you may find them flattering or giving compliment unnecessarily. So that is not assertive. All right. That is more like a psychophancy, right? So that's different, right? You don't want to behave like that. Next thing is stating your needs, viewpoints, and feelings known. So unless you make those things about your needs, feelings known to other people, they don't have that telepathic ability to understand you. So often in our relationship, personal relationship, what happens is, me included, we expect other party to know everything about you. All right. So that is not good in business situation. If you do that, then the other person may do something that goes against your wish, needs, feelings, and there's conflict. All right. So if in professional situation or in personal situation as well, if you want the other person to know your likings, your needs, then communicate about it beforehand. Okay, so it's different once they have that information, and if they behave differently, that's a different thing. But at least you let them know. Okay, so let's say you are allergic to something, right? Maybe a food, something. The next time you go to like a business lunch, all right? If you've already stated it, that's it will be clear to other people, right? So if you didn't state it, then if your boss orders some dish that is allergic to you, then that person is not really at fault. You didn't let that information be known, or what your feelings needs be known, right? So you will be the one to be blamed, and that is not assertive. All right. Next thing is use I to create personal accountability or responsibility. So when you are in communication, when you're communicating, normally what I see sometimes, again, not, I wouldn't say normally, sometimes what happens is students use we. Okay, so even when I give them to write about personal reflective journal, they end up writing we. We did this, we were required to do that, so that is not personal reflection. Okay, so you're maybe writing reflection for the whole classroom, which was not the instruction. So in life as well, in business, use I. Okay, I put you in charge. I did this. It's better than we did this. All right. You may want to say, if you are in a group, sure. You know, if you're talking for the group, that's a different story. But when it comes to you as a person, use I. Next thing is making your own decisions. So again, if you're someone who is especially like us guys, I think sometimes, okay, we go to buy something, maybe clothes, and we can't make up our mind, or maybe that applies to girls as well. Okay, we see all these different options, and we can't really make decision. At that time, we're not being assertive, right? So maybe if you start making your own decision, even for small things, you will build up that self-confidence. Okay. Also, we learned this in your emotional intelligence, being more aware or in tune to your emotional self. So when you know what you like, that time it will not be very difficult to make decision, okay, on what you would like, what you don't. Okay, so maybe you can look over that emotional EI aspect as well, and also here start making your own decision. Don't let your boyfriend, girlfriend make decision for you, or your family members. All right, they may know you, but not as much as you would know yourself. Right? Okay. Standing up for your rights as a person, again, you would not want others to take advantage of you or violate your rights. If you don't speak up, all right, if you're someone who is always quiet in class, doesn't speak up, doesn't participate, that means you may be allowing your colleagues to actually, walk over you. All right, so change that about yourself if you want to be assertive. Standing firmly, compromising, or cooperating. Okay, so you want to exude that confidence in business relationship, and at times, if you need to compromise, you want to compromise. You want to achieve that win-win, situation or outcome, and you want to cooperate with others as well. Okay, especially when we work with others, we have to cooperate. All right. So if you go and work in a company, at times you may be assigned in a group, or you might have to work in certain sections in like a program. Maybe you're designing software. You'll have to cooperate with other people. Okay. So being assertive also means cooperating and also compromising at times. Okay, so last one here. If your assertiveness is met with hostility, it could be, right? In a situation, the other party is not really being assertive. Okay, he or she is behaving according to their parent ego state. At that time, your effort on being assertive may not be fruitful. All right, what can you do? So it's not, you're not there banging your head on the wall. The other person is not budging at all. What you can do is you can politely remove yourself from the conversation, from that situation. You can say something like, that's all I have to say, I have nothing more. Okay, then you will not make a decision that is not fair to you, okay, or to you, and you have removed yourself. Then that's your up to you whether how you deal with or not deal with the person again. All right. So the main thing here is don't react according to emotions strongly. All right, strong emotions. I mean immediately. Take time. Okay, so you can be assertive with yourself, with other people. Okay, when I say communication normally involves people, but you can be assertive within yourself. Okay, how do you become assertive within yourself? Is maintaining self-control. All right. And normally in our social dealings, we can maintain assertiveness when we deal with colleagues. When I say colleagues here, maybe classmates, all right? When people are equal to you, other people are equal to you, you can have assertiveness in that as well. You can have assertiveness when responding to requests from supervisors or superiors, all right? So that means in your case, how you deal with your teachers, all right? You can show assertiveness with them as well, all right? And you can also show assertiveness when dealing with subordinates or those who are at the lower rank than you. Hold on, I think we had like a power cut. Is it? Can you let the okay, all right, no, I just had the, it's okay now. All right, I didn't have like electricity with the monitor. Just a moment. Okay, so I was telling you can behave assertively to those who are, the lower rank than you as well. For example, how you behave with, maybe you are in your second year now. You may have like a new students now coming in for their first semester. So when you talk with them, you can talk with them in assertively, okay? But how you talk with them would be different than how you talk with your teachers, all right? Both assertive, but a little differently, okay? Okay, so these assertiveness can be in any of these situations, all right? Within yourself, with other people, and depending on situation, environment, depending on people, your assertiveness, the same assertiveness, but differently in different interactions. Okay, let's look at certain do's and don'ts about assertiveness. Know this and try to emulate or try to implement these in your life, okay? As I have said, knowledge by itself is nothing, all right? Some people say knowledge is power, but that's not true. If you just accumulate knowledge, it will be like you just buying all these books and just putting it like piling up in your room, okay? That will not be helpful. It may look good in your room, okay? But it will not helpful to you. So apply these knowledge in your life. What you learn about EI, apply it. Then you will be powerful. Then you will be a different person, okay? So first advice here is you should never interrupt people, but always wait for them to finish. So when you are communicating with other people, don't talk over them, okay? So in Nepal, normally people are not very conscious about this point. So we have a group of people talking, and people may be talking over each other, or in that group, the group may be like 6 people, and within that 6 people, there may be like a mini group there, like 2 people talking about something, and 4 people talking about something else, all right? And that's not very assertive, all right? So if you have to talk with other people, give them chance to finish their thought. Then you talk, all right? So when you talk, the other person should basically listen, okay? So when you're listening and talking at the same time, normally we are more focused in letting our voice be heard than basically understanding the other person, okay? That's not communication. That ends up being like a one-way communication, like we saw in the first class. Okay, next point here, it's not right to put your needs before those of others. I think you should know that is not assertive if you do. Keeping quiet is a non-assertive approach. So here, keeping quiet means someone who basically keeps quiet, doesn't let his or her feelings, thoughts be known. That is not assertive as well, okay? So this keeping quiet is different than basically listening to other person, okay? So listening is okay, it's assertive. But here, a person is just keeping quiet, all right? At the end of the day, you may feel like, okay, is he like a dumb, or what, right? If that's the situation, then that person is not being assertive, right? Next thing, you should always act with consistency and predictability, all right? So don't behave a certain way in, today and certain different way tomorrow, especially in your personal life as well, in professional life as well. If you do that, then that would be taken a little kind of like differently, okay? So have some consistency as a person in your communication or in your dealings. You should stand up for your rights and not be trampled on. All right, that should be clear. To ask to be left on your own is an antisocial thing to do. So this may sound a little different to you, but here you are concerned about other people as well. Okay, so in communication you wouldn't normally do that. All right, so leave me alone. Right, that's not something you would maybe in your personal life or maybe a certain situation, but normally in our normal dealings, interaction, you normally don't tend to do that. Putting forward a difference of opinion or being argumentative. These things might look different than saying, okay, what if I have like different opinion? Don't I have right to say that? You may question like that, but here it's something different. Okay, some people have the tendency to find defects in what the other person is saying, and they have something to say immediately. Okay, just to prove it's actually their ego coming into play. Okay, that could be the one of those parent ego state or child ego state. How maybe they witness their parents, interacted. So they want to like prove the other person wrong. Okay, so they're constantly looking for a difference in opinion. That's also not good. Okay, you can't really get along with people if your ego state wants to feel good and put other people below you. Outwardly enjoying rewards and recognition for something you've done well is showing off. Again, this thing might sound a little different. So though you did something good, why don't I just enjoy this recognition? Okay, this is different. So accept what you have done. Good. Okay, that's good. But trying to like maybe outwardly enjoying the reward, these things, even though you would feel good. You're not being assertive if you do. All right, you're just trying to show off, and that's not good. Okay. Okay, so let's look at reasons why, as a person, we can't be assertive in our life. Okay. So we may have this assertive, aggressive behavior. So if you have one of these beliefs, these scripts in your mind, then that will hinder or that will make it difficult for you to be assertive. All right. So, when you communicate with other people, if you find yourself constantly disagreeing with other people, so it could be one of these beliefs that you have, one of these scripts in your mind. Okay. So you may believe that things are always right or wrong, and there are no gray areas. So things are either yes or no, and there is nothing in between. If you have that belief, then you tend to have aggressive. Okay, so if I am right, then you have to be wrong. If you have that mentality, then you cannot be assertive. All right, you cannot reach to that win-win situation. Another wrong belief is, another wrong script is, it will show weakness if I change my mind. So maybe you realize that you have done something wrong, okay? But because you have this script saying, if I accept that, then they will think differently about me. They will think that I'm weak. This is actually pretty common script, okay? So one of you guys may ask a question, or may want to ask a question, all right? But inwardly, what you feel that, okay, if I ask a question, and if that question is not that significant, then others may think something differently about me. All right, that could be. All right, so that's the wrong script. All right, so you might need to change that script, mental script. Another thing is, other people have no right to disagree with me. So again, you had that upbringing where your parents basically put you first, and you maybe behave certain way, where you are always right, right? Could be, all right? Maybe you think about it, all right? Then those type of people have the tendency to basically always being right. No matter they're right or wrong, they're right. So if you have that mentality, then you cannot be assertive. All right, so you may want to change it. Again, when I say change it, it's very easy, right? But if you're trying to change yourself, it's very difficult. Another script is, both people can't be right. So Again, it's kind of similar to the first one. Other people can only be right if I'm wrong. Okay, and you don't want to be wrong, right? Okay, so these are some wrong scripts that's been in your mind's memory, in your mind's hard drive, right? And you want to like change it, rewrite it. So you may have some passive behavior as well, which can hinder you or which will obstruct you from becoming assertive. All right. So these beliefs or these scripts can be disagreements lead to conflict, which is always unpleasant. All right. So I have seen it many times actually, where you have this, where people have this mentality. If they say something, then I will disagree with the other person. I don't really want to disagree at this time right now. Okay. So I'll better go along with the other person, right? So that's also not good script, all right? Not good belief, right? And if you do that, then you're not being assertive. Another one here is people think I'm awkward if I ask questions. Happens a lot of times, okay? So maybe in your class you didn't understand something, but you don't want to speak up. Okay, you don't want to raise your hand and say, okay, I didn't understand that. Could you explain in more detail, please, or give me example? Because you're afraid, you're awkward. You may feel like if I ask this question, I'll be like like a bright spotlight would open up, and you'll be on that spotlight, and everybody would look at you, right? So that mentality is also not good. That belief. Next thing is I may make a fool of myself. Okay, so oftentimes it is a very common script, mental script. Okay, so that's why you don't want to take risk in life, because you feel you would fail. Maybe you would make a fool of yourself, a joke of yourself, right? So you don't even start doing it. All right, you don't want to take risk, you don't want to do something new. All right, that's not good. Next belief is they will think I'm being big-headed. So big-headed means, they will think that I'm proud, I'm haughty, things like that. If you have that mentality, you'll always take that lowly path. Okay, if I do that, then others will think differently about me or something like that. That's also not good. I don't have the rights to disagree. If you have something like that, I advise you to change it. You have the right to disagree as well. Okay. All right. So you have some idea now. The one extreme is aggressive beliefs. Another extreme is the passive, very submissive belief. Okay. So if you have one of the tendencies, depending on the environment, situation, a person can have aggressive behavior at certain things and passive behavior at certain things. Okay, so maybe you want to look into, introspect. Okay, examine yourself through your mental eye, and as like a physician, now work on yourself. All right, through your mental faculty, and just one thing at a time, maybe, and do things differently, and bring some positive changes in your life. All right. Okay, so let's look at the assertive behavior beliefs. All right, assertive scripts. So assertive scripts is where you believe that I and others have the right to opinions which may differ from each other. So you have your own opinion, I have my own opinion. Everyone has rights to their own opinion. If you have the belief like that, then you are being assertive. All right. Oftentimes we may say this thing to say, but inwardly we may not mean it. That's not being assertive either. All right. You have to mean it what you say. I and others have the right to express our opinions and disagree. So we can all agree to disagree. Okay. That's also assertive behavior. Next thing, disagreements are not the same as arguments and don't necessarily lead to conflicts. Okay, so in a group, if you are discussing about something, if you disagree with me, that's not like we are quarreling right now. Okay, we're just putting our own opinion, and through discussion, maybe we can come to a resolution. If you have a belief or script like that in your mind, then you'll be open to something different arguments from your own. Okay, you will not be very aggressive because you will not have the belief saying I am, I can only be right. You don't have that. Okay, so others can disagree with me. I can disagree with others. These things. Next thing is opinions are not necessarily right or wrong, merely subjective. All right. So again, you have your opinion. You guys watched that picture of elephant and people feeling that elephant by closing their eyes, right? In the EI. So one person, touched the ear and was like something, and one person touched the tusk, and he was feeling like a spear or something. One person touched the, closing their eyes, touched the abdomen or something, and he or she felt like it was a wall. Okay, so again, in life we can have different opinions. Okay, and opinions are right, neither right, not necessarily right or wrong. Okay, so if you have that belief within you, then you are more close to being assertive. Okay. By listening to others' opinion, I may learn more about myself, others, and the world I live in. So you'll be more open to others' suggestions, opinions, all right? If you are not assertive, then what you will feel, okay, who is this person like suggesting to me? All right, you may have that mentality, that script. But if you are assertive, then you have this belief that you have just two pairs of eyes, all right? Surrounding you, your friends, family, maybe your coworkers, they have so many minds. They probably see things, maybe differently than me, and maybe they are right as well. So if I could incorporate the suggestion from them, maybe I can improve myself. If you have that, that belief, then you're being more assertive. Okay, you're not really, adamant about your own thing. Okay, your own opinion or things like that. Another thing is all feedback is information. Again, when we talk about the neuro-linguistic programming, we will look at this, okay? But here, all feedback is information. So whatever feedback you get, that's the information for your self-growth, maybe for your improvement, maybe improvement on your project, things like that. So take feedback positively, all right? So when maybe it could be like in a form of constructive criticism, all right? Something that is different from what you have, what you believe maybe, or what you think, about your opinion. So take feedback positively. If your outlook is not positive about feedbacks, then you will not be someone who would implement that in your life, in your projects, in your work, all right? So have positive outlook about feedbacks. Okay, again, these are some of the neuro-linguistic programming terms. So if you don't understand it right now, don't worry. Okay, we'll be going in detail, I think, in one of the coming weeks. Okay. Okay. So what are some of the reasons of not being able to say no, or saying something, we say something but we really don't mean it. Okay, let's look at some of the reasons here. The first reason is we don't want to offend others. Okay, we don't want to hurt others' feelings. So if I say no, then I will be hurting their feelings. Okay, if you have that belief, then you will have a hard time saying no. Okay, another thing is you want to avert conflict. Right. So if you feel that if I say no, then I will have conflict with the other person. Next time I need someone, then the other person will say no. All right. So if you have these things, then you will have a hard time saying no. You want to be liked and avoid judgment or criticism. So you are that always yes man, right? So if you have that belief, then things will be a little difficult in the long run. Okay, because you don't have a lot of resources in life, unlimited resources. You're afraid of making a mistake. It's also a thing. Okay, we are afraid of making a mistake because our belief maybe if I make a mistake, I will make a fool of myself, right? Before other people, before my family. If I take this risk in my business, I will, if I fail, others will think differently about me. Things like that. All right. I don't want to impose or burden someone. You don't want to jeopardize a relationship. You don't want to spend the time, maybe. All right, so let's look into other things. I think they should be clear now. I've explained in more detail. Okay, so let's look at when you are behaving assertively. Let's look at what the characteristics of assertive communication. Okay, assertiveness in communication. So the eye contact. Okay, so it depends also in cultures as well. So normally, when you are sincere about something, you would not avoid eye contact. Okay, so when you're talking to someone, when you're asking, whether you would like or not, and if they're saying yes but not looking at you, how do you feel? Is that assertive? Possibly not, right? You want to look into eye and you feel like the connection there. Okay, so eye contact is also important. It demonstrates interest, shows sincerity. Okay, next is body posture. Okay, so when you are being assertive, your body posture also should basically, give the message, right? So if you are, let's say, talking to your business partner, and you have this, sloopy, like a body posture, as if like you're very tired, and your hands are like, hanging down. That may not be very assertive. When you're, saying something, in the speech, maybe you're confident, but in your body language or body posture is not showing. All right, that's also not being assertive. So you might want to like have a confident posture. Okay, so you're taking personal accountability, responsibility, right? You want to exude that through your body posture as well. Next is gestures. Okay, gestures, like appropriate gestures, help to add emphasis. Okay, so maybe your hands are moving as you're talking with your business partner. Maybe that would also help, rather than having your hands together in front. Maybe that will not add assertiveness in your communication. Okay, or maybe you have hands tied to your back or in your pocket. All right, that may not be very assertive. Voice, when it comes to voice, your voice, this is the paraverbal part we talked about in the first class. Okay, so when you say something, your vocal that features, all right, that attributes should also go along. Okay, so if you're talking to your business partner, and if you're requesting something, but you don't have that same assertiveness or same thing in your voice, okay, you're like scared, and your voice sounds like that, then that is not assertive. Okay. Next is timing. Things said at the right time, okay, would have maximum impact. All right. So if for this class, for example, if you wanted to ask me a question about, let's say, emotional intelligence 4 weeks ago, all right. So if you're asking me a question about emotional intelligence now, then I'm talking about different thing right now. Although I'm not saying don't ask. Okay, you can ask. You have the freedom to ask. But what I'm saying is the impact that your question would have had 4 weeks ago may not have the same impact right now, not only to me, but to your friends as well, because they are in a different mindset right now. Okay. And also content, about like how, where, when you choose to comment is more important than what you say. Okay. All right. So that's also another NLP topic, and I think we will go in more detail then. Just for now, just have the superficial knowledge about it. Okay, so let's look at some assertive techniques, 6 assertive techniques in communication. So these are, I think, the technical terms. So just try to understand it. If you are interested, maybe you can do some research about it. Okay, so the first term here is, the technique here is behavioral rehearsal. Okay, so let's say you have a business presentation tomorrow. All right, so today, like you want to be, pretty much pretty much comfortable with that. Okay, so maybe you would practice a sufficient amount of time, so tomorrow you know how you would behave, okay, and so on. Okay, maybe it's your business meeting tomorrow, all right, and beforehand you want to be comfortable. You want to as of like rehearse what you would be doing beforehand, or it could be some other things like if you want to be assertive, you don't want any like unnecessary surprises, all right, or your own confidence, comfortability. You want to increase that. So that means you might want to think about it, maybe mental rehearsal, maybe physically you want to rehearse it as well. So that's called behavioral rehearsal, right? Next thing is repeated assertion. So this is especially important when you are interacting with other people and you sense that other person wants to maybe manipulate you, or when you don't want to say yes, okay? So they're constantly trying to maybe change your mind. At that time, you can just say calmly, state, no, okay? Respectfully say no, firmly. And for all, like maybe, if the other party presents a different way, you can still say no, okay? And stay calm. That way you will avoid being taken advantage of by other people, okay? So don't let yourself be taken advantage by other people. Another is fogging. So for the term fogging here is for any criticism, okay? You agree that there might be some truth to it, okay? So if you are getting a constructive criticism from other person, okay, so you'll not say, okay, I'm not like that, I cannot be like that, okay? So what you would do, this fogging is, you would accept that things might be wrong with you, okay? There might be weaknesses within you, okay? But I will not judge myself immediately. What I will do is maybe I will think about it, okay, in more detail and maybe work on it. But right now, I will not make self-judgment, but I will also accept the fact that maybe that is true about me, that criticism, okay? So that's this term. So instead of, immediately judging yourself or immediately, not agreeing, okay? So you just, for now, just agree, and in a sense, you'll accept that there might be some truth, then work on it later. Negative inquiry. So if you get some negative feedback from your friend, okay, so what happens is you're not clear. For example, let's say you are giving a presentation, okay? So at the end of the presentation, your friend gave you some feedback, okay? And what he said didn't make sense to you, all right? And what happens is you would meet him in person, right, and say, okay, I really didn't understand what you meant by that. I wish I could understand so I can improve about myself. Could you please elaborate on that, what you meant in person? Okay, you can do that. So that is negative inquiry. So then you would elaborate on what he said and how you can improve on your presentation next time. Okay, so this is negative inquiry. So next is a negative assertion here. So basically you accept things may be wrong with you. Okay, you have this personal fault. Again, we talked about strength, weaknesses, right? So everyone has that. So if you have this belief that I have no weaknesses, then it's a different world. You live in a different world, okay, of your own. So if you want to be assertive, okay, you have to accept your faults as well, right? However, you try not to be self-judgmental. You are trying to improve yourself, okay? So if your friend gives you, suggestion, you can improve on that. Workable compromise. So, wherever there is like no, at the end of the day, you don't want to compromise on your core beliefs, okay? Wherever otherwise it's possible, you may want to have a mutually agreeable solution with other people. Okay, it could be in business. For example, you go to business. You go on a business travel to China. All right, and you meet your counterpart there. You have like a nice meeting. I'm just I'm trying to find a right example here. Okay, so basically you would work on like a like negotiation. Okay, but you would not violate your core beliefs. The core beliefs could be your religious belief, something that you have been believing from childhood. You don't want to violate that. If you do that, then it will hurt you as a person. Okay, so never let that. So always think about that. Any question? I hope that you are understanding, um, and I hope that you will apply these things in your life as well. And hopefully you'll remember this class. So let's look at how you would deal with conflicts. Okay, so conflicts again in life unavoidable. It's in families, like in your family, you'll find conflict. Classmates at times you will find yourself in conflict. In school, and when you start working, you'll find conflict there. It's like conflicts like everywhere. All right. So the thing is, like, how do you deal with it? Do you avoid conflicts? How do you deal with it? All right. So let's look at some few ways, few steps, it's like process that you can use in order to deal with conflict. All right. So again, this is not the only way that you do it, but this is one of the ways that you can deal with conflicts. Right. Okay. So when you find yourself in conflict, don't react immediately. Okay. So when you react, what happens? The other party also react. Then things go out of control. Right. So try to relax. All right. If it helps, count to 10, or maybe count to 50 or 100 if that helps. All right. The main thing is you're trying to let that strong emotion subside. All right. That wave of emotion, when it subsides, then your mind will not be that foggy. All right. It will be clear. Then you'll be able to think rationally. Okay. So that's the point here. So don't react immediately. So that's the first thing. Okay. So normally when we are in conflict, we are in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. All right. So that means you will do something immediately or something drastically, and then you may regret later on why did I do that? All right, because I was in that emergency situation, because your mind was in that state. All right. Next thing, when you are relaxed, all right, then what you do is you try to be more rational. Okay, you try to identify the source of the problem. Okay, so if it's the problem with if it's the conflict with your friend, so you say, okay, why did your friend say that to me? Okay, is there a reason? Did I do something wrong to him? Okay, did he hear something about me from another friend? Okay, so you try to identify the source of the problem. Or if it's in a professional situation, so you try to say, okay, what happened here? Okay, at times we may not have all the information, right, to understand the conflict. So you're trying to unravel, you're trying to identify the source of the problem. Okay, so next thing you do is assess the effects upon you and your work. Okay, that conflict. Some conflicts are minor. Okay, so you can maybe brush it out at times. Okay, maybe have a conversation with the other person and just deal with that conflict. Some conflicts may be very taxing to your life. Okay, so it could be taxing to your physical health, to your time, and so on and so forth. So try to assess the effect of the conflict on your life. If it's very serious, maybe you want to deal with it immediately. All right. If you're dealing conflict, like a series of conflict, maybe you have more than one conflict, see which one is having the most negative effects upon you. Okay, maybe you can deal with that first, maybe. All right. Then you can deal with other conflict. I'm just giving examples here. All right. So it's a situation. So assess the effect of the conflict or conflict on you, on your personal life, professional life. All right. And just try to have some idea. Okay. Next thing is plan how you will deal with the person. So this is like behavior rehearsal. Okay. So let's say you are having conflict with your coworkers and you have to meet that coworker tomorrow. So today what you would do is through your mental mind, or maybe you can exercise in your room. Okay, that's a behavioral exercise. You would maybe stand in front of the mirror and just speak. Okay, you want to be assertive. All right. Just how you would present yourself with the person or in that situation. You would rehearse. Okay, just plan. So this planning is also involves like having good idea about what things you have control over, how much you can give, okay, what do you want, and so on. It's like a negotiation, all right? So all falls under planning. How will be your behavioral response? If a person says this will be my response. If the person doesn't agree, I have a backup plan. If it doesn't agree with the backup plan, maybe something else, all right? You want to be clear beforehand, especially if it's like professional situation. You want to be clear, okay, because you want to be serious about solving the conflicts. Also, anticipate the other person's reaction. Okay, if I say this, what will be the possible series of reactions or responses from the other person? Okay, now based on that, you should have something to offer to the other person. Okay, otherwise the conflict may not be solved. If you have nothing to give, I mean, if you feel like I cannot really do that, I cannot apologize, at times you might need to apologize, right? Just like you saw in that video about transactional analysis, the boss ends up apologizing with his subordinate, right? At times it can be like that, okay? So have some ideas, anticipate the reactions and what your own reaction would be and your response would be. Above all, when you are dealing with people with the situations, concentrate on facts rather than feeling. All right, when you can separate people from or situation and emotions separately, okay, when you can separate them, then you can work on more logically, more rationally, right? So you can work on what is truth rather than what is opinion. Rather than saying I don't like you, all right, so I don't want to deal with you, you concentrate on facts, all right, than feelings. And also you are open to the input from the other person. At times when we are in a stressful situation, when we are in conflict, we are not really willing to listen to other people. We have certain agenda, a mental agenda, and we just want that to be heard but not listened. The other person may be talking as well, but all we want to do is, okay, I want to say this thing and just be done with this conflict. But oftentimes conflict doesn't end like that, okay? You have to give, you have to take. It's like a negotiation, all right? Okay. All right, so hopefully when you find yourself in conflict, maybe try to, be more tactful, more assertive in your dealing, all right? Okay, I think that's it's basically builds on the previous series of steps. Okay. I think this is not that. This was just included, I think, last or before semester. It's about asking question. Okay, check at appropriate point in conversation. So when you're asking question, let the question be relevant to whatever the conversation is going on. Okay, ask at the right time. Don't interrupt. These things I think you should know. Okay. Also for your classroom or in your business situation, where there are like more than two people involved in like a group discussion. What you can do is see what is the norm in that setting. Okay, a typical norm, business norm, is you raise your hand if you have question. Okay, or in the business meeting, what happens if the most senior person is talking, then you're not supposed to interrupt the talk. Okay, or the presentation. It could be like that as well. So be aware of these things beforehand and act accordingly. Then what you ask will be more impactful. All right, so I think this should be pretty easy for you guys. All right, so that's pretty much what I have.